Everyone in Chicago believed Emily Carter was just another woman discarded by a powerful man. They saw the headlines of rumors and the cruel whispers that followed her after Damian Blackwell walked away. They believed she had lost because she was never important enough to matter. What they never knew was that Emily carried a secret capable of changing the entire balance of the underworld. At 25 years old, Emily lived a life far away from luxury and power. She moved through Chicago with quiet determination, working multiple jobs to pay her bills while hiding the emotional wounds she refused to show anyone. Every morning began with exhaustion, but every night ended with a promise that she would build a better future. Before the world knew her as a survivor, Emily knew Damian Blackwell as the man she loved. Damian, known throughout the criminal world as the Black Wolf, was everything ordinary people feared. At 38, he was tall, muscular, and impossible to intimidate. His strategic mind controlled a powerful underground empire built through loyalty, fear, and careful decisions. Enemies who challenged him rarely received a second chance, and his reputation alone was enough to silence entire organizations. To the world, Damian was a ruthless Mafia king. To Emily, he was a man who once promised she would always be protected. That promise became meaningless when power became more important than love. When Damian decided Emily no longer belonged in his dangerous world, he abandoned her without hesitation. The man who once made her feel safe became the person who destroyed her confidence. He treated their relationship like a mistake and made it clear that she was not worthy of standing beside him. The city noticed. People who admired Damian began judging Emily. They mocked her, questioned her value, and assumed she had been abandoned because she was never enough. Every insult strengthened the loneliness she carried, but it never destroyed her determination. Then Emily discovered the truth that would change everything. She was pregnant. The child growing inside her was Damian Blackwell's heir. Emily knew the Mafia world could destroy anything it touched. She understood that revealing the child would place an innocent life in the middle of dangerous rivalries, enemies, and power struggles. So she made the hardest decision of her life. She disappeared. Without Damian knowing, Emily protected his child and began rebuilding herself from nothing. She studied business, learned financial strategy, observed powerful leaders, and developed the skills needed to survive in a world that had once rejected her. The woman Damian abandoned was slowly becoming someone far more dangerous than he ever expected. She was not building a life based on revenge. She was building an empire. Years later, Damian Blackwell would receive information that would shake everything he believed about his legacy. Someone connected to his bloodline had entered the underworld, and the person controlling that rising power was the same woman he once called worthless. Years passed, and the world that once believed Emily Carter had disappeared completely was forced to reconsider. The woman who had walked away from Damian Blackwell's shadow was no longer struggling to survive. She had built something powerful, something that existed beyond the reach of the Mafia world. But the greatest secret she protected was not her business empire. It was her son. Emily named him Ethan Carter. From the beginning, she raised Ethan away from the violence and danger surrounding Damian's world. She never told him stories designed to create hatred. Instead, she taught him discipline, patience, and the importance of making decisions based on intelligence rather than emotion. Ethan grew into a remarkable young man. He was observant beyond his years, naturally strategic, and capable of understanding people before they revealed their intentions. Emily taught him confidence without arrogance, leadership without cruelty, and emotional control when pressure became overwhelming. She knew the world was unpredictable, and she knew one day the Blackwell name might find him. While raising Ethan, Emily quietly built a successful legitimate business empire. Starting with limited resources, she studied markets, learned negotiation, and surrounded herself with people who valued ability over reputation. Her companies expanded throughout Chicago, earning respect from investors and attention from powerful figures. The same city that once watched her fall now watched her rise. The underworld began noticing. Emily was no longer viewed as Damian Blackwell's abandoned partner. She became a force of her own, a business leader whose decisions influenced territories without ever needing violence. Meanwhile, Damian's empire began facing unexpected pressure. Financial attacks weakened key operations. Rival families challenged his influence. Trusted members of his organization began making questionable decisions, creating cracks inside the empire he had spent years building. Damien remained feared, but the years had changed him. Behind his ruthless reputation was a man carrying a silence he never admitted. Losing Emily had been a decision he made for power, but the memory of what he destroyed never completely disappeared. When rival organizations began discussing a mysterious young businessman expanding into valuable territories, Damien immediately paid attention. Nobody knew the identity of this new player. They only knew his methods were different. He avoided unnecessary conflicts, predicted opponents' moves, and built loyalty through respect rather than fear. His strategies reminded experienced criminals of someone they already knew, Damien Blackwell. Emily heard the rumors but refused to use her son as a weapon against his father. Revenge had once been easy to imagine, but she understood that hatred could damage Ethan's future just as much as Damien's world had damaged hers. Her priority remained protecting her child. Still, Damien could not ignore the similarities. Reports showed the young businessman possessed the same instincts he relied on, the same ability to predict danger, the same calm decision-making under pressure, the same leadership style that had made the Black Wolf legendary. Sometimes the strongest connections are hidden not by distance, but by the truths people are too afraid to face. Determined to discover who was challenging his empire, Damien followed the trail of the mysterious rival. And when he finally came face-to-face with the young man controlling his lost territory, he noticed something that stopped him completely. In Ethan Carter's eyes, Damien saw a reflection he knew better than anyone, the same look he saw every time he looked in the mirror. Damien Blackwell had spent years believing he controlled every situation around him. He understood enemies, predicted betrayals, and built an empire where fear created obedience. But there was one person he failed to understand. Emily Carter, the woman he abandoned, had not disappeared. She had transformed. When Emily finally entered the Mafia world openly, she did not arrive seeking approval or forgiveness. She arrived as a powerful businesswoman whose influence had already reached places Damien could no longer ignore. Her companies controlled valuable investments. Her decisions shaped markets, and powerful figures who once dismissed her now waited for her approval. The woman they once considered insignificant had become someone they respected. Some people who had mocked Emily after Damien rejected her now avoided meeting her eyes. Former enemies underestimated her because they remembered the old version of her, the woman who had been left behind. They failed to understand that pain had created discipline. Emily did not return with anger. She returned with control. Damien discovered the truth through reports that described a rising leader disrupting traditional power structures. At first, he refused to believe the name attached to the information. Emily Carter was alive. Not only alive, but powerful enough to challenge organizations that had spent decades dominating the city. For the first time in years, Damien experienced something stronger than anger, regret. He remembered the moment he walked away from her. He remembered believing power mattered more than the person who stood beside him. He remembered convincing himself that protecting his empire required sacrificing Emily. Now he saw the reality. The person he sacrificed became the one person capable of standing against him. Emily refused to allow the past to control her decisions. She did not seek revenge, and she did not waste time proving her worth to people who had already judged her. Her focus remained on protecting Ethan and expanding the future she had built. Her leadership style shocked the Underworld. She predicted enemy movements before attacks happened. She negotiated alliances without revealing weakness. She identified criminal strategies by studying patterns others ignored. Where Damien ruled through intimidation, Emily gained influence through intelligence and precision. Even Damien's advisors began noticing the similarities. Her strategic decisions mirrored the methods that had made the Black Wolf legendary. Some quietly admitted that Emily's ability to understand people and situations rivaled Damien's own. That realization created a dangerous conflict. The old Mafia power structure represented Damien's empire. The new leadership represented Emily's rising influence. Two powerful forces were moving toward the same battlefield. Inside his private office, Damien struggled with emotions he had buried for years. His pride told him Emily was still someone he could control. His regret reminded him that he had already lost that chance. Power had always been his greatest weapon, but guilt had become his greatest weakness. The cruelest lesson for Damien Blackwell was realizing that the woman he rejected was no longer waiting for him to save her. She had become the only person strong enough to challenge him. As Damien investigated Emily's growing influence, another truth finally surfaced. The mysterious young businessman connected to the new territories was not a random rival. He was his son. But before Damien could confront Emily and uncover the full truth, his enemies made their move, launching an attack that threatened both of their empires at once. The truth Damien Blackwell spent years unknowingly searching for finally reached him, but arrived at the worst possible moment. His empire was already under attack. For years, Damien believed his greatest challenges came from rival families, internal betrayal, and enemies fighting for control. He never imagined the biggest revelation of his life would appear in the middle of a war threatening everything he had built. Ethan Carter was not just a rising businessman. He was Damien's son. The discovery left Damien frozen between emotions he had spent his entire life avoiding. Shock was the first reaction. Then came regret. A painful realization followed. The child he never knew existed had grown into a young man without him. Damien Blackwell had protected countless people through his empire, yet he had failed to protect the one person who carried his own blood. Emily's actions revealed the truth more clearly than words ever could. She had spent years keeping Ethan away from danger, building his confidence, and preparing him for a world she hoped he would never have to enter. She had carried the responsibility alone because she understood the cost of Damien's world better than anyone. Damien struggled with the reality that he had missed years of his son's life. First steps, first achievements. Every moment a father should have witnessed. But there was no time to repair the past. The enemy was moving. Several rival Mafia families launched coordinated attacks against both Emily's growing business network and Damien's established empire. Their goal was simple: weaken both leaders before they could unite. Financial operations were targeted. Trusted locations were compromised. And Ethan became the most valuable target. The rivals understood something Damien and Emily were only beginning to accept. Their son represented more than an heir. He represented the future of two powerful worlds joining together. Emily refused to panic. Instead of responding emotionally, she analyzed the attacks and created a defense strategy based on timing, resources, and prediction. She identified patterns in enemy movements and redirected assets before opponents could gain control. Damien watched closely. For years, he believed power came from making enemies afraid. Emily proved that intelligence could be even more dangerous. Damien brought strength, experience, and authority. Emily brought patience, strategy, and an ability to see opportunities hidden inside chaos. Together, they created something neither could have built alone. Their cooperation remained difficult. Damien struggled with his instinct to control every situation, while Emily refused to become the person who simply followed his commands. Their partnership worked because both understood one important truth: their son's survival mattered more than their pride. The greatest threat to an empire is not losing power. It is losing the reason that power exists in the first place. As the attacks continued, Ethan became the symbol of everything the enemy feared. He carried Damien's instincts and Emily's discipline, making him a leader shaped by both worlds. But the rival families had no intention of allowing that future to exist. They launched their final assault, believing they could destroy Damien's legacy forever. Then Emily discovered the real objective hidden behind every attack. The enemy was never trying to take Damien's empire. They were trying to erase his bloodline completely. Damien Blackwell had spent his entire life believing there was nothing he could not control. He defeated enemies, expanded his territory, and built an empire powerful enough to make entire organizations hesitate before challenging him. But none of those victories prepared him for the one battle he could not win through fear: winning back the trust of the woman he destroyed. After learning the truth about Ethan, Damien began changing in ways his closest allies never expected. The man who once demanded loyalty through intimidation started earning it through actions. He no longer expected people to follow him simply because they feared him. For the first time, Damien understood that respect could not be forced. Emily noticed a change, but she refused to forget the past. She remained careful around him, keeping emotional distance despite seeing his efforts. Years of abandonment could not disappear because of a few apologies or good intentions. She had built her life without him, and she would not risk everything she created by trusting too quickly. Their son felt the weight of that history. Ethan had grown up knowing Damien only through reputation. To him, Damien was not a father who missed birthdays or shared childhood memories. He was a powerful stranger connected by blood, but separated by years of absence. Damien understood that rebuilding their relationship required patience. He did not try to buy Ethan's respect with money or influence. Instead, he showed up when it mattered. He listened, learned, and slowly proved that he wanted to become the father Ethan deserved. The transformation surprised even Damien himself. A man who had controlled entire organizations struggled with something far more difficult: being emotionally present. While repairing his relationship with his son, Damien also protected Emily's empire from rival attacks. He used his resources to strengthen her operations without trying to take control. For once, his power existed to support rather than dominate. Emily noticed a difference. She taught Damien that leadership was not only about eliminating threats. It was about creating stability, building trust, and understanding the people who depended on you. Their approaches were different. Damien relied on experience and authority. Emily relied on intelligence and preparation. Together, those differences became their greatest advantage. The Underworld quickly noticed the alliance forming between the former enemies. Two powerful leaders who once stood apart were now working together, creating a force that threatened every rival organization in the city. But unity always creates enemies. Inside Damien's own organization, someone watched the changes with growing resentment. A longtime member of the Blackwell Empire believed Damien had become weak. They saw Emily's influence as a threat and believed the old way of fear and control was disappearing. The traitor began collecting information: old records, hidden agreements, forgotten decisions. They searched for anything that could destroy the fragile trust Damien and Emily had started rebuilding. Eventually, they found something: a secret buried deep inside Damien's past. A decision he made years ago, one Emily never knew existed. Sometimes the greatest danger is not the enemy waiting outside the gates, but the truth hidden inside the person you thought you understood. When the traitor finally revealed the secret, Damien realized the consequences could be devastating. Because the truth was not just about his empire. It was about the one moment that could destroy Emily's trust forever. The truth Damien Blackwell feared most was not waiting outside his empire. It was already inside. For years, Damien believed loyalty was the foundation of everything he built. He trusted the people who stood beside him through wars, negotiations, and countless battles for control. But the greatest threat to his family was not a rival organization or an outside enemy. It was the person who had been standing closest to him all along. Marcus Vale had served as Damien's trusted advisor for more than a decade. He was one of the few people allowed access to confidential information, financial operations, and strategic decisions. To the outside world, Marcus appeared loyal, disciplined, and devoted to Blackwell Empire. But behind that loyalty was ambition. Marcus believed Damien had become weak. He believed Emily's influence had changed the empire, and that Ethan's existence threatened the power structure he had spent years helping create. In his mind, removing Damien's control and taking command was not betrayal. It was correction. His plan was built on three things: power, revenge, control. Marcus secretly manipulated information between different factions, creating misunderstandings that weakened trust. He encouraged enemies to attack at moments when the Empire appeared vulnerable, while quietly positioning himself as the only person capable of restoring order. But Marcus underestimated Emily. She had survived being abandoned, judged, and underestimated. She understood that the most dangerous threats were rarely obvious. They were hidden in patterns. Instead of confronting Marcus directly, Emily began investigating quietly. She studied financial records, reviewed unusual transactions, and followed small inconsistencies that others ignored. She discovered hidden accounts, unauthorized payments, and money being redirected through companies connected to Marcus. The evidence revealed that the betrayal had been developing for years. When Emily presented the information to Damien, he realized something painful. Once again, the woman he had pushed away had protected everything he built. Damien had spent his life believing he was the protector of his empire, but Emily had become the person who saved it. This time, he did not react with anger or pride. He accepted responsibility for allowing his trust to become a weakness. He understood that leadership was not about never making mistakes. It was about recognizing them before they destroyed everything. Emily noticed the difference. For the first time, Damien was not defending his ego. He was defending his family. But Marcus had already moved to his final stage. He knew the Empire had discovered his betrayal, and he understood that escaping was no longer possible. If he could not control Damien's organization, he would control the one thing that represented its future. Ethan, the hidden heir, became the center of his plan. Damien, Emily, and Ethan prepared together for the confrontation. Their relationship was no longer built on old wounds alone. It was built on survival, trust, and the understanding that they were stronger united. The most dangerous enemies are not the ones who attack your walls. They are the ones who convince you they are protecting them. Then Marcus launched his final move. As chaos spread to the Empire, Emily uncovered the truth behind his attack. He was never planning to kill Damien. He was never trying to destroy the Empire. His real target was the heir who could inherit it all. The attack on Ethan Blackwell became the moment that changed everything. For years, Emily Carter had been viewed as the woman who lost, the woman Damien abandoned, the woman who was left behind when the Mafia world decided she was not powerful enough to survive. But the same world that once ignored her was about to witness something impossible. The woman they dismissed had become the person capable of saving them all. As Marcus Vale's final plan unfolded, Emily took control of the response. She did not react with fear or anger. She studied every movement, analyzed every weakness, and created a strategy that turned the enemy's confidence into their greatest mistake. Damien stood beside her. For the first time, the Black Wolf did not lead by himself. He trusted Emily's judgment completely, allowing her intelligence to guide the Empire through its most dangerous moment. Their enemies expected Damien's strength. They never prepared for Emily's mind. She predicted their movements before they happened, redirected loyal forces, and exposed Marcus's hidden allies one by one. Every decision proved that she was not simply surviving in the Mafia world. She belonged at the top of it. Ethan also proved why he was considered the future of the Empire. He combined Damien's strategic instincts with Emily's discipline and patience. Instead of allowing fear to control him, he used intelligence and preparation to overcome the threats surrounding him. Together, they represented something the Mafia world had never seen before. A legacy built from both power and wisdom. The final confrontation ended with Marcus's downfall. His plans collapsed because he underestimated the very people he believed he could control. The man who wanted to steal the Blackwell legacy lost because he failed to understand one simple truth. A family united by trust was stronger than an empire built on fear. After the conflict ended, the Mafia families that once questioned Emily's position were forced to acknowledge her influence. Leaders who once dismissed her now recognized her as one of the most powerful figures in the Underworld. She was no longer Damien's forgotten past. She was the future of the Empire. Damien made that truth clear in front of his closest allies. He openly recognized Emily's role in protecting everything they had built. He acknowledged that the Empire survived because of her intelligence, courage, and leadership. The woman who had once been called worthless became impossible to ignore. The greatest revenge is not destroying the people who underestimated you. It is becoming someone they can never stand above again. Under Emily's influence, the Blackwell Empire changed. Operations became more organized. Decisions became more strategic. Leadership became stronger and more disciplined. Fear was no longer the only foundation of power. Respect became the new force holding the Empire together. Emily had finally reached the position she never chased but completely deserved. Yet, peace rarely survives when hidden truths remain buried. While reviewing old family records after the war, Emily discovered a sealed document hidden among Damien's private files. The information inside forced her to question everything she believed about the past. The betrayal that destroyed her years ago may not have been Damien's decision alone. The document hidden inside Damien Blackwell's private files changed everything Emily believed about the past. For years, she carried the pain of one betrayal. She believed Damien had chosen power over her, that he had willingly destroyed the life they could have built together. But the truth was more complicated. Still, Emily was no longer the woman who needed answers to survive. She had already built something greater than revenge. She had built an empire. After the downfall of Marcus Vale, Emily's influence became undeniable. The same people who once whispered that she was nothing more than a forgotten woman now recognized her as the true strategic force behind the Blackwell legacy. Her intelligence had protected the empire. Her decisions had strengthened it. Her leadership had transformed it. Damien finally accepted what he had refused to see years earlier. Emily was never someone who needed to stand behind him. She was someone capable of standing beside him. The Mafia king who once believed control was the only path to power learned that true leadership came from trusting the right person. He supported Emily's decisions, respected her authority, and allowed her vision to shape the future of the empire. Their son, Ethan Blackwell, became the symbol of that future. He carried Damien's determination and Emily's wisdom. Unlike the generation before him, Ethan would inherit an empire built on strategy, discipline, and loyalty rather than fear alone. The world around them began changing. Blackwell businesses recovered stronger than before. Rival organizations that once challenged their power were defeated or forced to respect their influence. The reputation surrounding the family transformed from a story of violence into one of unmatched control and stability. Chicago noticed. The empire was no longer ruled by one feared man. It was guided by a family. Emily had finally reached the place she deserved, but she no longer cared about proving herself to the people who once doubted her. The pain they caused had shaped her, but it no longer controlled her. She did not want revenge. She wanted legacy. The most powerful transformation is not becoming feared by the world. It is reaching a point where the world's opinion no longer decides your worth. Damien understood what he had lost when he abandoned Emily. He lost years he could never recover. He lost moments with his son. He lost the chance to stand beside the woman who believed in him before the world feared him. But he also understood what he gained. A partner who challenged him. A family that gave his empire meaning. A future stronger than anything he could have created alone. The Blackwell Empire entered a new era. One built on two powerful minds and a new generation prepared to protect everything they had created. Yet, hidden truths had a way of returning. Deep inside an old family vault beneath the Blackwell estate, Emily discovered another seal file untouched for decades. The documents inside revealed a shocking secret connected to Damien's past. A person everyone believed was gone had survived in complete secrecy. Someone who knew the original secrets of the Blackwell family. Someone who believed the empire belonged to them. And now they were coming back to claim everything Emily had built.